I actually recorded this already and the sound was not set up. So this is my second time and hopefully I do it even better. Some Like It, Scott. This is an excellent book. I really had fun with this. It is a Christian romance, though there is barely any message of Christianity. So I feel like this could be loved by like a wide variety of people that like these type of stories in general. This is specifically about a girl named Katie. Katie, she had a grandfather who was born in Scotland, and she herself, she loves her roots, but she's a vlogger. She does a lot of travel. She has people that sponsor her. She goes around the world and she just does these videos of herself traveling. She really loves it. She's got wanderlust like crazy. There is an Edwardian experience that she wants to go to in Scotland. And once she gets there, there is this one guy who is a little bit brawny and he is grumpy, and his name is Graham. But man, does she think that he is hot. She can't deny that they have some sort of relationship that gets along really well. I mean, at first, not so much, but after time, they keep bumping into each other and they start to realize that they have a lot more in common than they realize. They both have some grief that they are going through, but in different forms. Their family handles it differently. One thing that was mentioned is that she is a curvier woman. She is about 6 foot tall and she is supposed to be what they call about 12 stones in weight. So I looked up what 12 stones is, and for her height, that makes her about 170 pounds. That means she's normal weight. So she would be a little bit more thin, not completely curvy. So I was kind of like, maybe they should have made her weigh a little bit more. I just felt like that was a little off. But she emphasizes throughout the book about her size and how she's always been like kind of mocked for her size, for her height, and just being a bigger woman. So through her journey in Scotland, she starts to fall in love with the people there and the family that she starts to connect with there. There's even this little boy that she starts to get along with really well, and there are cows that bother her, and just there's some adventures. She's a little bit of a clumsy person, and that's part of her thing. But it was very cute. I really had fun with it, and I wanted to keep knowing what the story was. And I will say the romance, there was a lot of chemistry, and even though it is a clean romance, man, sometimes I was like, whew, they really have a thing for each other. Whew. To tone it down quite a bit, the Millie Molly Mandy series. I got the first 3 books of these. There are several. This is the 100th anniversary of these books, and I had never heard of them until like a year ago. And I will say, even though these I think would be more aimed for little girls that are like 7 to 11, it is so great to read. It's so charming. I love these books. Each of these books has stories of what her name is Millicent Margaret Amanda, but it's shortened to Millie Molly Mandy, which it's like, just call her Millie. Like, it's very long still. So she's a little girl living with her parents, her grandparents, and her aunt and uncle. And she is a bit of a hard-working girl. She's an entrepreneur. She wants to help out in different ways. She has such a longing to learn. And I love the spirit she has throughout this, because I feel like it's something little girls today should really be inspired by, is how she doesn't give up. And when she's determined to do something, she sits down to think about it first, and she gives possibilities and understanding before she goes through it. And even when she's with her friends, even if they sometimes don't always get along, they try to find a resolution. I think there's so many great life lessons that little girls could get from this, plus some historical things, because 100 years ago, things were very different. There's even a story in one of these books where like 16 little kids go into the back of a car, and you know, the cars back then where this had like the hood down, and they strapped 2 kids to the back of the hood, and I'm like, safety. Yeah. And they say like, oh, she drove very slowly. And something else that I love about this, there's even a story in the 3rd book, which I really loved this story. This book actually was my favorite of the 3. This is the 3rd book. She sees a girl on a bicycle, and back then they didn't have training wheels, so she was determined to learn how to ride with her friends, and they spent like a few days trying to learn on these other bikes, and they try to fix them up. So that's what I love too, is that they're not just like, oh, it's old, it doesn't work, forget it. They like are determined. There are illustrations that the author actually created. I love the art. There's a lot of detail to them, and they're just so beautiful. So definitely I recommend reading these if you love wholesome stories, or if you have a little girl. I don't have a little girl, so I read them. and I found them to be wonderful. We're like going back and forth on the type of books here. This is called Flory. This book I had been wanting to read for several years and I couldn't find it. My library didn't have it and I couldn't even find it. I had to thrift this book. I finally went to Thrift Books to get it. So that's a really good place to get used books, by the way. The story of Flory, she was born in the Netherlands. She was a Jewish woman who was about 17, 18 when World War II had begun. So living in the Netherlands, she talks about what it was like before the war, during the occupation of the Germans coming in, and what that was like for her, the experience she had. There was one point she had to escape and she survived this really bad boat crash. So she talks all about what that was like, what the healing process was from that. Then she had to go back to the Netherlands, even though they tried to escape from it. And she talks about how she went into hiding with her husband. Her husband was actually her boyfriend for a long time, but then they got married before they went into hiding. So she talks about the years of hiding in two different families' houses, one in particular for quite a few years. And they were resistance fighters. And it just shows the amount of community that they had and all the people that really hated what was going on with how the Nazis were treating people. In this book, there are some crazy things. So content-wise, from what I can remember, there were about 2 bad words used in this. There's talk about death, there's talk about suicide, there's talk about people stealing things. There's not completely graphic. She's pretty good at not being graphic in here, but there are a little bit of details with violence, but nothing that is like going to make you sick to your stomach. Of course, the story in itself is just sad, but I will say there is good news because her family, for the most part, and she said there were over 100,000 Jewish people living in the Netherlands, and there are only like 6,000 that survived. So she survived with most of her family. But this was such a good book. I really recommend if you like survivor stories from World War II era, this one is very much a good one if you could find it. I'm actually passing it on to my mom after this because she was interested in it. But maybe when she's done, if anyone wants it, just let me know and I'll see if I can send it to you. An Appalachian Summer, or Appalachian, depending on where you are from. This is a historical Christian fiction novel. There's a young woman, it is 1930, and she has this whole coming out into society type of thing. And she's 20 years old, so she's a little bit older for coming out into society, but her father wants to marry her off. But the thing is that even though there are some people that are interested in her, she is interested in someone named Jamie that she has been in love with since she was young, but she hasn't heard from him in a while. And so she's very hurt by that because she doesn't know where he is. Her father probably wouldn't approve of him because after Jamie's father died, he lost some money. They're not as fancy with their riches. And Jamie is trying to get a job as a teacher and he's doing some journalism on the side and he's writing for a newspaper. Piper, her aunt, wants her to fall in love and marry for love, even though the father is kind of like, marry for riches. Piper, through her aunt's encouragement, she decides to go into the Appalachian Mountains to work with nurses and midwives who are helping women give birth and helping them with that. And so she is going to be an aide. So she decides to go for the summer. But when she goes, Jamie has been trying to find her. And so because he works with the paper, he decides, I'm going to go and see her and write a paper about the people and what they're doing there. So it's a very cute story. I liked this. It was enjoyable. I wasn't amazed by it, but it was a sweet story. This book was actually recommended to me by someone that I know in person. And so I will say thank you for the recommendation. I enjoyed it. It was a good summer read. Last but not least for today is Towards Rest. This is a book that I found out about several, I guess 3 years ago, and I had been trying to find it. And again, I thrifted this. So this is to give you an idea of how Jesus, he rested. You know, you see him several places sleeping and how he worked really, really hard, but then he also rested. And so this tries to encourage people that in today's society with the hustle bustle lives that we are told to live, that you need rest. You need a Sabbath day. You need time to take off, to enjoy being able to live slowly. And that's something that I've been very into for a long time. And another thing, this one has really beautiful photography in it. And this one I definitely read in like a day. You know, you get so many pictures in it. It was very nice. I'm glad I finally read it. This could work as like a devotional if you're interested too, because they're just sections. So if you want to spend a day reading just one section, I think this works for encouraging you and helping you out. Well, that's all for today, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. I'm really glad that I had such a productive reading July, and I have a lot of other books that I hope to still read. I do have, I think, one more book on my summer TBR, but I'm also going to just fill in some other ones that I had wanted to put on my list that I didn't. So I'm going to fill in the gaps with what I can while it is still summer for a while. And I love summertime. So we still have all of August and some of September for summer. All right. Thank you. Bye.